If you just started making content 4 months ago, you'd be hard pressed to pull 100 views, much less 1,000. What if I told you how to pull millions? Bobbi Althoff is igniting the podcasting world and doing just that. She landed her first episode of one of the biggest artists in the world, Drake. Bobbi grew immensely from this, but the sudden rise led to whispers of her being an industry plant. This only got amplified when her husband became known, a multi-millionaire who was an executive in a large company. All this took a backseat real quick when a new controversy started to arise. Was Bobbi sleeping with her guest? After a public fallout with Drake, many proclaimed this as a fact. The end of this one-shot wonder was on the horizon, and many were cheering it on. But there was a big problem. They are wrong, and if you believe this, so are you. Bobbi Althoff is not an industry plant. Let me explain what most people consider an industry plant today. Usually this term is used when somebody is pushed to the spotlight artificially. This can be somebody like Clairo, whose parents were big shots in the music industry. She received opportunities that most people at that size would never be able to get. So in simple terms, somebody, typically an artist, is bolstered by the industry to stardom without really working for it. When somebody comes out of nowhere and gains substantial attention, speculation comes naturally. A lot of people claim Juice WRLD was an industry plant due to blowing up shortly after X's death. This was obviously incorrect when you take into account how much he posted on SoundCloud and all the hard work he put in before all this fame. In comparison, starting in early 2021, Bobbi started to post videos on TikTok. The type of videos she was making were nothing like the podcast she does now. Bobbi was actually a mother, and she showed it in most of her videos. A large majority of her content was mom and pregnancy videos. To be honest, I don't really get the appeal of this content as a young adult man with no kids. But with that being said, I do not think it applies to a lot of you watching this video, as 99% of my audience are men. I mean, I was never exposed to this person beforehand, and you probably weren't either. Keeping this in mind, it is very easy how an illusion of just appearing can be constructed. For me, she literally did not exist until very recently, and I think many people are in the same boat as me. Although the reason I know she exists seems to raise red flags in its own right, Bobbi's first episode was with Drake, and the podcast took the internet by the balls. There was not a single place I could get to that day to shelter myself from this story. Maybe I should have just touched some grass. Anyways, she was gaining popularity, but 3 million followers on TikTok is not enough clout to set something up with someone like Drake. To put it in comparison, Lex Friedman and Joe Rogan have never had him on either of their shows. This quick attention made everything suspicious, but it is prefaced with some lies. Drake was not Bobbi's first episode of her podcast like many people were proclaiming. She originally started with Tammy Sorsek, an actor from Pretty Little Liars, who was also active on TikTok, and a mother. It could be very easy to imagine that she just saw Bobbi's content and an interview was easily arranged. It's not like she was the lead actor or anything, she was a supporting character. And if that is how the industry pumps someone up, that is kinda weak, to be honest. This interview did do numbers though in its own right, getting tens of millions of views. And this is mainly due to Bobbi's persona in this.
So you do need my help on Instagram.
I don't need help at all.
You do, because your Instagram for it doesn't even have 10,000 followers.
My what?
Your Instagram for your podcast?
That we started, fucking 2 weeks ago?
That's a long time to not get to 10,000 followers.
In her previous content, she was an easygoing and extremely bubbly person. But for the podcast, she changed gears. With a straight face, she asked questions directly and bluntly. In conjunction with an extreme dry sense of humor, it led to a very different experience. Personally, this type of content also does not really appeal to me. I never got it recommended to me then, and even now I don't really think it's that funny. On the other hand, a lot of people seem to really enjoy it, and it led to bigger names coming onto the show. After a few more interviews, she landed Rick Glassman, a relatively successful podcaster in his own regard. Following this, Bobbi had an episode with Funny Marco, a very successful YouTuber comedian. Up to this point, this episode did the best for her, and it gave some of the mainstream community attention to her content. This included a little someone named Drake. He followed Bobbi, and smelling an opportunity, she quickly reached out to him. An hour later, she had booked an episode of Drake. A week before the episode was posted, a little teaser started coming around. It had Drake and this weird girl almost getting at him, which led to a huge intrigue for the full episode. Just a few days later, the episode drops and it blows up. It was in every internet realm, even my normie friends knew about it. This episode did well over 20 million views and it led to almost 100% gain in followers for Bobbi. This is the most views she had ever received. With this giant influx of new attention, people started trying to figure out who she really was. This led to people finding out who her husband was and what he did. To be fair, this was not that much of a discovery as he is featured in a lot of Bobbi's TikToks, and they are still up today. However, as I mentioned before, most of this new traffic had never been exposed to her content. When they figured out who he was, they also figured out that he was a successful author, teacher, and vice president of a giant company. Corey Althoff is a self-taught computer programmer and has written about his experience. Besides that, he sold a very successful course on Udemy, leading many to believe he easily made millions. Besides that, his day job is being the vice president of CompTIA, one of the biggest IT companies in the US. When people heard about all this, they believed that he was fronting Bobbi's expenses and paying for these interviews. With all that being said, he may have made a few million from everything, but after the cost to produce and paying taxes, I don't think they are flying private or living in a castle. Drake is filthy rich. And I do not think he would waste his time for anything he would offer. Honestly, I mean, it's just money. Since I'm talking about money, I do want to bring up how often Bobbi talks about being broke. She claimed to have spent all her money to get these interviews and is putting most of her expenses on credit cards.
Now, because like people think I'm joking about being in debt, and I'm like, I'm not. Like I put every penny I had into this podcast. Like.
This does seem to be disingenuous, as her husband is extremely successful, and she has had a pretty large social media following for years now. Anyways, the interview with Drake was hosted in a bed of both of them mostly being underneath the blankets. This did lead to some tension, and there were some sexual questions asked as well. Being a mother of two with a husband at home, all this did seem a little strange, but clout is one hell of a drug. And if you can post your children nonstop, I don't think a little question is too bad. What was bad though was that just a few weeks after posting the episode, it was nowhere to be found. Bobbi had deleted all traces of it. This is one of the biggest artists in the world, and a golden ticket that she just threw away. It seems to stem from many people suggesting that she had sex with Drake for an interview. They all followed one another, and besides her denying those allegations, it was never mentioned again. Originally, everyone had their pitchforks out and called her an industry plant. After going through everything, it really does not seem to be the case. She established herself and has been doing it for years. She did start small and grew exponentially, but it seems to have been more luck than anything to reach the last peak. If she's not an industry plant, then her husband must be bankrolling all of this. No, I really don't think so either. I mean, come on. Drake does interviews when he wants to. He can get paid what he wants, and I do not think that they could afford Drake if he was charging. Remember, he has not been on the biggest podcast in the world, as in Joe Rogan's. Well, if neither of those are true, then she must be fucking him. There's literally no proof in regards to this, and it feels like a sexist remark after moving the goalpost so far. I do want to mention that after the Drake interview, she did sign with a management studio that also signed Drake. There does seem to be consistently high-end celebrities with her now, but I don't think that's a play anymore. I mean, she already came up, and her studio is just now doing their job and advertising her. Content's not for me, and it's not for you, so we don't have to watch it. So I mean, she's an industry plant who was funded by her husband that has to fuck people to get them on? Come on, that's ridiculous. But this mystery drives clicks and drama sells. This whole thing was stupid, and so is the Dylan Dennis Logan Paul situation. If you want to hear about that, check out this video, and if you liked, leave a like. If you disliked, leave a dislike. Peace out.